Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, and today we're going to talk about Dana White Contenders Series Week 1. And my friend, it's going down this Saturday night live at the Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. We got 10 prospects fighting for a contract, and I just got to give a quick shout out to all the supporters of Half the Battle because, you know, a week ago, I wasn't even going to do this, but I sent out a tweet, just wanted to gauge to see if y'all would be interested in me even doing a show for Dana White's Contender Series. And it was an overwhelming response. So I am truly grateful. Thank you very much. And without further ado,
let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this. We've had a million nights just like this. So let's get down to business.
So unlike the UFC breakdowns where I normally start with the main event, here for Contender Series, it's only 5 fights. So we'll start with the first fight of the night. And the first fight of the night in the flyweight division, we got Tuan Ho. He's 6-0, taking on Lon'er Kavanaugh, who's 6-0. Both 6-0. Someone's always got to go. And currently they got it Lon'er Kavanaugh minus 160. The comeback on Tuan Ho is plus 140. So right off the bat, you see that Tuan Ho has got the Vietnamese flag. You see Lon'er Kavanaugh, he's got the Chinese flag. But actually, Tuan Ho, he lives in the United States. He trains at the MMA lab in Arizona. And with Lon'er Kavanaugh, he doesn't live in China. He lives in the UK. And, you know, most of his regional scene was in Cage Warriors, whereas with Ho, most of his regional scene was in LFA. And this is one of the most well-matched fights on, I don't want to say on the entire season, but definitely on the first episode. And the reason being is this. Normally when you get two guys that are 6-0, they're super green, you feel like, man, they probably need a little bit more experience before they perform under the bright lights. But these two have been showing out in their regional scene, and I think that both are ready to be in the UFC right now. Both have extremely exciting styles. When you talk about Tuan Ho, there's a lot of flash, there's a lot of aggression. Kind of, you know, I don't want to compare him to anyone else, but kind of has a bit of Josh Van vibes to him, where the guy just goes for it, and he's got some flash. He'll try. I've seen him end fights with spins. He had a nasty knee bar in one of his fights. So he doesn't discriminate. He's down to brawl with you on the feet. He's down to go to the mat and scramble. So, I mean, right off the bat, Tuan Ho is definitely a prospect to look out for because he's well-rounded. He's aggressive. He's a finisher. He fights exactly the way that you want to watch people fight. But then on the other side with Lon'er Kavanaugh, you can say a lot of the same things for him. He's also got a lot of swag about him. There's an aura about this kid, Lon'er. He's super confident and he's very, very athletic. And there's a maturity about his game that you don't often see with guys that are only 6-0. So how they match up, it's kind of interesting to say because neither guys truly had a weakness in any area. Like, I know there's been some fights where, you know, maybe Ho got held down for some spots, but the guy's always trying to get back up, and he takes big time risks, which you love to see. But Lon'er, man, there's just a calm and a poise and a presence about him. And I just really see if someone gets finished, the person on the delivering end, I mean, he's earned that finish straight up because these two aren't the kind of guys, you know, they don't give an inch. They'll take, you give them an inch, they'll take a mile, you know? So, yeah, I don't really see anyone just giving blatant openings. But what I've noticed, and it's hard to say this, but I think Lon'er Kavanaugh is slightly more polished. And I say that with pause. The reason being is because Tuan Ho, I think even if he loses this fight, I think whoever loses this fight is going to be in the UFC. These two belong, whether it's right now or whether it's go back to the regional scene, get a couple more wins under your belt. You will see Lon'er Kavanaugh and Tuan Ho in the UFC flyweight division in the next year, guaranteed. So Both these guys are absolute studs. I'm kind of leaning towards Lon'er. Like I said, I think he's slightly more polished, but again, I'm not confident enough because it sucks to pick against either of these guys. I feel like both of them deserve contracts. Both of them deserve this opportunity, and both of them are going to show out. So look out for a very exciting first fight of the night in the flyweight division. I'm going to lean towards Lon'er Kavanaugh, but I mean, if Antoine Ho gets that contract, that'll be dope too. These guys are two certified badasses. Now, next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Jose Delgado, he's 7-1, taking on Ernie Juarez, who's 8-0. And currently, they got it. Jose Delgado minus 330. The comeback on Ernie Juarez is plus 270. So this is interesting because stylistically, when you talk about, it's not just about winning on Contender Series, right? You want to go out there and perform for the bosses. Well, this dude, Jose Delgado, he goes for it. It's nonstop action. Head kicks, body kicks, leg kicks, punches and bunches. He's got a wrestling background. And he's 7-1. All 7 of those wins are finishes. The one time he's lost, the fight went to decision. But I like the fact that he's tasted defeat before. I always say, unless your name is John Jones or Habib, no one is exempt from that first L. And if you stick around long enough, those guys would take their first L's too. So I'm glad that Delgado got it that first L on the regional scene out the way. He went the distance with a very tough dude who is currently 8-2, named Chris Mikheil. So look out for Chris Mikheil. I could see him, getting a Contender Series call or a UFC call at some point in the near future. But the thing I love about this Jose Delgado kid, he's actually been on my radar for a while because he fought someone I know in Dimitri Miller, who used to train in Atlanta at X3 Sports. So back in the day, like pre-pandemic, I used to train with Dimitri Miller, and he had a lot of potential, but I think he wasn't as focused as he should have been, so he kind of got derailed a bit. But anyways, when Dimitri Miller fought Jose Delgado, I took note of Delgado, the aggression that he came out with, just throwing head kicks off the jump. And he's another guy willing to take risks. Doesn't matter if it's on the feet, on the mat. He's exactly the kind of guy the UFC are looking for. But on the other side with Ernie Juarez, it's interesting because he's not bad at all, but aesthetically looking, it's just not very fun to watch. And I say that, and it sucks to say that about someone who their dream is to be a UFC fighter. They've worked for this opportunity. But the UFC don't really like these lay and pray guys. And don't get me wrong, I know that Ernie Juarez has gotten some submissions. I know he's gotten some ground and pound stoppages, but I just think that when it comes to the UFC level, he'll play out like a boring lay and pray guy. Listen, he's super physical. He kind of reminds me of do you remember that kid Darion Weeks who fought Ian Gary and Johan Lainez? He kind of reminds me that / Drakkar Close, where Ernie Juarez is super physical, but the fights are going to play out close. And on the feet, man, he probably hits hard because he's a like I said, he's a physical guy. He's a big dude, but he doesn't have that flow or that natural striking ability. You know what I'm saying? Like he can hit hard, but it just doesn't look very pretty when he strikes. It looks rigid. It looks stiff. I think if this comes down to volume on the feet, Delgado is going to be outworking Ernie all day. But where I'm worried is that Ernie is one of these guys that's super tough, and he'll eat shots and he'll keep walking forward. And when he gets on top, he's super heavy on top. Now, luckily for Jose Delgado, he does have good scrambling ability. He does have a wrestling background, and I don't think that he's going to be content to play on his back. But again, Ernie's a very strong guy. So that's what you got to look out for. But I just don't think the UFC are going to really like Ernie's style that much. Now, I say that, watch him get a highlight reel knockout and everything I say goes out the window. But historically, he's just not the most exciting. But that doesn't mean he's not effective. He's 8-0 for a reason. But I think that Jose Delgado, assuming he's in shape, because he did take this on short notice, but I want to say that on the topic of Jose Delgado taking this on short notice, he's already had 3 fights in 2024. So this is his 4th fight in 2024. And the last one he had was last month. So there's a chance that despite this being short notice for Jose Delgado, that he's still coming in here ready. He seems to me like the kind of guy who lives in the gym. So I think Ernie Juarez's path to victory, kind of lay and pray, kind of stall this guy out, whereas Jose Delgado, make it exciting. Punches and bunches, big kicks, crazy scrambles, potentially get a finish along the way. Like I said, all 7 of his wins are by finish. That's what the UFC is looking for. And if he doesn't get stalled out or grinded, I think Jose Delgado is going to get his 8th win and possibly his 8th finish. If he fights like he did on his regional scene, he will get a contract. Let's see if he does. Now, next up in the light heavyweight division, we got a matchup between Bruno Lopes. He's 12-1, taking on Mikheil Sazhiniani, who's 13-2. Currently, they got it. Bruno Lopes minus 170. They come back on Mikheil Sazhiniani is plus 145. So Bruno Lopes is a former LFA champion at light heavyweight, and he actually fought on Contender Series already. And actually, he's not a former LFA champion. He's a current champion because I guess he never truly lost his belt. So he's still that LFA champ. And Bruno Lopes is a well-rounded dude. He's actually known for his jiu-jitsu background, but the guy has zero hesitancy to go out there and slug it out. The thing about Bruno is he's one of those guys where he's got the jiu-jitsu credentials, but doesn't always use it, right? And you guys have seen plenty of guys like that throughout the years, like Robocop, Hobocop. Now, Hobocop lately, he's been fighting great, but y'all remember when he first came out in the UFC, he liked to brawl with everyone, got knocked out by a guy he probably shouldn't have got knocked out by. So from time to time, Bruno Lopes is going to be on that kind of 205 type Robocop deal where you're like, dude, you have such a huge advantage on the mat. Like, why are you brawling with this guy? But he can brawl. He does hit hard. He's got big kicks, and he's a well-rounded guy. It's just with his body type and with his style, he will fatigue. Just the way he fights and the way he's built, he will fatigue. But on the other side with Mikheil Sazhiniani from Georgia, not my Georgia, the other Georgia, listen, man, he's got 12 wins by knockout. So you love seeing stuff like that, but the level of competition was so low. I feel like this guy hasn't truly been tested yet. And not only that, because it's not always about the level of competition, because you either can scout talent or you can't. There's been plenty of guys who have fought all cans and then have come into the UFC and done fine. But the thing about this Sazhiniani guy is I don't think the skills are quite there. Like he's a big kind of burly dude and has, some blast doubles and stuff like that. And he'll swing, but at the UFC level, I think that his skills are very, very elementary. Whereas Bruno Lopes, I don't think he's going to have a perfect UFC career. I think that with the way he fights, he will be susceptible to get knocked out from time to time. But I just think that he's a level above Sazhiniani, man. I think that right now, Bruno has paid his dues on a very tough regional scene in LFA, has been through Contender Series once. And even though he got knocked out by Brenderson Ribeiro, man, he didn't look that bad in that fight. It was pretty 50-50 until he got caught. And I don't even think it's a chin issue because he ate some flush shots prior to the knockout blow and was fine. I just think it was you got hit right on the button. And you get hit on the button by another 205er, you're going to go down. And the thing with his opponent, Mikheil, is that he just hasn't been tested. And even with that said, I just don't think he's on that level right now. So for those reasons, I'm going to pick Bruno Lopes to win the fight. Now, how easy does Bruno make it look? That's up to Bruno because like I said, Bruno's the kind of guy that even if he has that clear path with his jiu-jitsu background, you can just go out there, take him down one time. The fight might be over shortly after. He is that good on the mat. Bruno likes to brawl. Now, I'm not saying Bruno's going to lose if he brawls because Bruno's got big power too. I mean, Bruno's knocked some people out himself. So, but it would, be advantageous or at least, path of least resistance to go ahead and try to show off that jiu-jitsu pedigree. But I have a feeling Bruno is going to brawl, and I would not be surprised if Bruno won by knockout. I'm picking Bruno to win this fight. I just think that he's paid his dues. He's ready for the UFC right now, and Mikheil Sazhiniani needs a lot of work. So for that reason, I'm going Bruno Lopes to win this fight. Now, co-main event, we got Meng Ding. He's 34-8, taking on Rami Hamed, who's 12-3. Currently, they got it. Meng Ding minus 210. The comeback on Rami Hamed is plus 180. So this is a really interesting fight because we were talking about kind of padded records and can crushers and whatnot. And Meng Dang, I mean, look, firstly, he's got 27 knockouts on his record, which is like, yo, you're a bad boy. But like when you look at the guys he's been fighting, I mean, we're talking about like a couple fights ago, he knocked out a 2-6 guy. When this guy was 31-7, he knocked out a 2-6 guy. When this guy was 30-7, he knocked out a 4-8 guy. It's like when this guy, oh my God, look at this. When this guy was 26-7, he knocked out a 1-0 guy. So yes, he does have 27 knockouts on his record, but the record is super padded. But he has been tested. The one dude that beat him a couple times, I don't know how to pronounce Buddy's name, Tulu Osibaki. That guy tested him, and he finally got the win against that guy in I think it was either the trilogy or the quadrilogy, and he finally knocked him out in the third round. Listen, I like this kid Meng Dang. I say this kid, how old is he? 29. Okay, he's still in his 20s. He's a brawler. Anytime you got 27 knockouts, I don't care if it's against a vendor from 7-Eleven or a UFC caliber guy. Like the fact that you're putting people down, you're treating the cans accordingly. So I love that. And Meng Dang, he fights with a lot of enthusiasm. He fights with a lot of pride. He likes to brawl. He's got a big smile on his face. I like a lot of things about him. But I do think, despite the strength of schedule, I think there's a lot of holes in his game. A couple fights ago, he was attempting a Darce choke on this guy, and just the fundamentals on the mat just were not there for Meng Dang. Now, on the other side with Rami Hamed, he's kind of a wild card because he hasn't fought that often. He's been plagued by injuries. But let me say this. Okay, so the guy hasn't fought since December of 2022. So you think, shit, you've been out that long and you're going to come back on Contender Series. That should not be the be-all, end-all reason to pick against him. Reason being is, y'all remember Daniel Marcos, who's currently undefeated in the UFC. Daniel Marcos comes into Contender Series off a 3-year layoff, and he owns his opponent. So just because this kid hasn't fought in a while, I'm not holding it against him. But what I will kind of hold against him is that level of competition as well, man. Like, so he's coming off 2 straight leg kick TKOs, which his leg kicks look fucking hard, man. But like, one dude was like 46 and the other, it was like really bad competition as well. So neither of these guys have truly fought at that level. That's why this is going to be interesting. But I like how both fight. Meng Dang, more of a brawler, a lot of enthusiasm, like I said. With Rami, kind of like has that kind of bounce that Yuri Prohaska has, and has like a similar physique, but he's more of a kicker. Very heavy leg kicker to the body, upstairs. Maybe the hands aren't as good as Meng Dang, but he can definitely kick with him. And Meng Dang has been knocked out via head kick before. So just like based on his style, the guy's a brawler, whereas Rami Hamed, a little bit more distance, more kick. So it's kind of like a kicker versus a brawler. It's a tough one to call. The thing about it too is that Meng Dang was supposed to fight this dude Islam something. What was Islam's last name? Dulatov? Yeah, he was supposed to fight Islam Dulatov. So again, you haven't fought in 2 years and you're taking this fight on short notice. But again, it just brings me back to Daniel Marcos. Even though this guy doesn't fight like Daniel Marcos, like you can still come off a big layoff and win on Contender Series. And skill for skill, I think they match up pretty well. It's just like, where has Rami Hamed been? Has he been grinding in the gym, in shape? I know he trains out of MMA Masters. Like if Rami Hamed's coming in here in shape, I think he's got a great chance to chop down the legs of Meng Dang and eventually kick him upstairs, knock him out. I think this fight's going to be very exciting because both these guys have big weaknesses on the mat, but neither looks to take the fight to the mat. Both like to bang, just in different ways. Meng likes to throw hands, and Rami Hamed likes to throw kicks. So it's a tough one for me to call. I actually think this one, and I could be way off because Hamed did take this fight on short notice, and he hasn't fought in 2 years. But I kind of think it's a dog or pass situation, and I'm going to actually pick Rami Hamed to come out here for the upset, chop this man down, eventually go upstairs, and knock him out with a head kick. Main event of the evening in the middleweight division. We got Mansur Abdul Malik. He's 5-0, taking on Wesley Schultz, who's 6-1. Currently, they got it Mansur Abdul Malik minus 295. The comeback on Wes Schultz is plus 235. I love this fight. This is a fantastic Contender Series main event. So with Mansur Abdul Malik, okay, well, firstly, let's not even talk about him yet. Let's talk about both these guys. Both these guys, former D1 wrestlers. So they're coming in here already, like, have competed at very high levels in other sports, and they both transitioned to MMA, which you love to see. With Mansur Abdul Malik, I mean, I'm sure you've heard it before, but this guy is a freak athlete. This guy has insane potential. If they can develop this guy right, he can go straight to the top. But it's about developing the guy right, because like you look at a guy like Robles de Spain, for example, who fights nothing like Mansur. Mansur, you know, D1 wrestler. Robles displaying like a Taekwondo Olympian or whatever. You can't just rush these guys just because they have these freak athlete qualities. You have to get them seasoned. You have to give them the proper experience. You have to let them pay their dues and bring them along the right way. And I think that this fight here with Wesley Schultz is the perfect test for Mansur Abdul Malik. So both D1 wrestlers, like I said, Mansur Abdul Malik on his regional scene. I mean, this guy, firstly, if you don't know what this guy looks like, just think about like a middleweight, I don't know, Francis Ngannou looking dude. Scary. He's going out there. He's suplexing guys on their head time after time after time. He's got some nasty upper body throws. The stand-up is kind of developing a little bit. You know, in his pro debut, he just threw this guy on his head like 3 times. And then when they're on the feet at distance, like this kind of fat dude dropped him to one knee. So on one hand, you're like, man, is this guy kind of chinny or what's the deal? I don't think that was the case. I think it was his pro debut. I think he was throwing the guy around like it was no one's business. He thought it was easy. His hands were down. He got cracked with a shot, went down to one knee. But guess what? He didn't quit. He stands back up, and then he finishes the guy. And when you watch that fight compared to his most recent one, you see the progression. You see the maturity. And again, they just got to bring him along the right way, because the potential is endless. It's just about, you have to harvest it. Harvest the garden of life, fruits and vegetables. No, you got to harvest this potential. You can't just throw him in the mix right away. That's how you mess up prospects. But here with Wesley Schultz, I like this kid Schultz too. I'll tell you why. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Elias Theodoro. Rest in peace, Elias. And what I mean by that is not just because he has like the long hair and whatnot. He kind of looks like him a little bit, but because he's like not the most athletic guy, but he'll push on that pedal, man. He'll go for it. He's a tough dude. Like, I got a lot of respect for Wesley Schultz, and his only loss was actually to Dylan Budka, who at the UFC level is like one of the most boring fighters we've ever seen. But man, Wesley Schultz made Dylan Budka have an exciting fight. Their fight was fun to watch, like 3 rounds of scrambling, man. And I think that Wesley Schultz is good. I actually could see him win some UFC fights for sure. Like, you put Wesley Schultz in there with Cedric Dumas and Chaluen, I think Wesley Schultz can win those fights. And here it's going to be predicated on Schultz is going to have to overcome some stuff here if he wants to win this fight. Like, Schultz, despite his D1 background, he might get slammed on his head too. The physicality difference here is night and day. Mansur is a monster. And Schultz, he's grindy. He's tough. I respect him a lot. He's experienced. Well, not that experienced, but at least he's taking his first L, right? The only way I see Wesley Schultz winning this fight is a comeback type finish, whereas I can see Mansur just run through him easily. But what I'm worried about, Mansur only being 5-0, go out there, you know, blow your load. Now you got nothing left. You pull a rookie stunt. Oh, shit, you get finished late. That's a possibility. But my gut is telling me the UFC scouted this guy, and they're like, dude, we can do big things with this guy. And I love this matchup because we've seen Wesley Schultz get slammed in past fights early on. He's going to get slammed here. But what happens if he doesn't get finished? That's what makes it so intriguing. Can Wesley Schultz, you know, start getting into the second half of the second round and start to put a pace on this guy? Or is Mansur just going to just train wreck this guy? Like, that's the big question. So I'm going with Mansur Abdul Malik. I think this guy's a serious prospect. I got a lot of respect for Wesley Schultz. I do think he will be in the UFC one day, but as long as Mansur doesn't pull some kind of stunt, I think that he could like pick Wesley Schultz up and throw him out the cage type shit. Like, I think this guy, he looks serious, just has to develop. So I'm going Mansur Abdul Malik to win the Dana White's Contender Series Week 1 main event. Now we got to talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So what is the fight to watch for Dana White Contender Series Week 1? My friends, the fight to watch is the first fight of the night, the flyweight fight between two undefeated prospects, Tuan and Lon'er Kavanaugh. These two go for it. These two like to fight. They like to take risks. They got a lot of swag about them. And for that reason, the flyweight fight between Kavanaugh and Ho is my fight to watch. Who is my fighter to watch? My fighter to watch is in the main event, Mansur Abdul Malik. The potential and the talent of this guy, I mean, is right up there, but that doesn't always guarantee success and results. How many times have we seen busted prospects throughout the years who look like they could be, oh, the next this, the next that, right? But he does look like that. So let's see. That's why, for that reason, all eyes will be on him. I was about to say Saturday night, Tuesday night. And for that reason, he is my fighter to watch. Well, my friends, thank you so much for joining me on my very first episode of Half the Battle for Dana White Contender Series Week 1. I'll be back later this week to break down UFC 305. I got a special guest for that one. And then next week, I'll be back to break down Week 2 of Contender Series. So let me know what y'all think in the comments. Smash the like button for me. Hit the subscribe button. Give me some feedback. Tell me what y'all want to see. Just tell me what y'all think. I'm very, very interested by it. I'm on Twitter at Best Fight Picks. I'm on Instagram at Half the Battle Pod. Subscribe to Half the Battle everywhere podcasts are found. Thank you guys so much. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.